My name is Captain Arlen McReady. For 32 years, I have commanded vessels on every ocean this world has to offer. I have faced typhoons in the Pacific, rogue waves off the Cape of Good Hope, and piracy threats in the Straits of Malacca. I have logged over 2 million nautical miles. I tell you this not to boast, but to give weight to my next statement. What I am about to share with you is the single event in all those miles, in all those years, that defies every law of probability, every ounce of my maritime training, and can only be described as divine. This is the story of the MS Resolute, a vessel carrying 2,847 souls, passengers and crew, and how, on a night that should have been our last, we were granted a miracle. This is not just a sea story. This is a testament. And I need you right now, before we even begin, to do something for me. Pause this video. Type one word in the comments, hope. Then tell me what city you're watching from. New York, Manila, Nairobi, Sao Paulo. Let's create a living chain of faith across this globe, right here in these comments. Go on, I'll wait. Good. Now let me set the scene. It was July, deep winter in Antarctica. The Resolute was on a 28-day expedition cruise, a pilgrimage for many to see the last wilderness. Among our passengers were priests, nuns, and countless faithful on a journey they called In the Footsteps of the Antarctic Pioneers. But there was one group, led by a quiet Irish nun named Sister Clara, who had a different purpose. They were bringing a specially commissioned beautiful mosaic icon of Our Lady, Star of the Sea, to be blessed in the southernmost waters. Stella Maris, the protector of sailors. It was housed in our small chapel, which was softly lit and prayed in day and night. The night it happened was peculiar. The sea was like oil, black and unnervingly calm. Not a breath of wind. The ice charts were clear, our radar was state-of-the-art, and the watch was alert. I was on the bridge with my first officer, a competent young man named David. We were making a cautious turn into a narrow, iceberg-filled passage known as the Labyrinth. It's a treacherous place, but we had the technology. Or so we thought. Without warning, our entire electronic suite failed. Total blackout. Navigation, radar, communications, engine control. Everything. Silence, then the frantic red glow of emergency lights. In an instant, a 100,000-ton ship became a blind, drifting giant in a field of ice. We were dark. And we were moving, powerless, with a deep current pulling us into the maze. Panic is a scent. You can smell it on the air, even on a bridge trying to maintain calm. We sent out a mayday on the backup battery-powered radio, but we were in a remote fjord, help was days away. We launched flares, but they simply illuminated the nightmare around us. A forest of icebergs, some as big as cathedrals, gliding past us in the eerie silence. And then, through the windows we saw it. Directly ahead, looming out of the darkness, a wall of blue ice. A tabular iceberg, sheer-faced and immovable. Our momentum was carrying us straight for it. There was no time for evasive action. No power for it. The calculations in my head were brutal, instant. A strike at that angle, at that speed, it would open the hull like a tin can. In water that cold, survival would be measured in minutes. We had maybe 3,000 life jackets for 2,800 souls. The math of tragedy is always so simple, so cruel. I gave the order no captain ever wants to give. Brace for impact. The sound that followed is one I will hear until my dying day. Not a roar, but a deep, groaning crunch as the starboard bow made contact. The ship shuddered, a scream of tearing metal. We were thrown forward. Alarms wailed. The iceberg was scraping along the side of the ship, a sound like the world being torn apart. And then silence again. The grinding stopped. The ship settled. We were alive. We were holed, taking on water but not sinking. Not yet. Damage reports flooded in. The impact zone was in a forward ballast tank, contained by watertight doors. We were crippled, listing but afloat. In that moment, I felt a surge of what I now know was foolish relief. We had survived the initial blow. But we were still a sinking ship in the most hostile environment on Earth, in total darkness, with no power and no way to call for help. We were, as the old sailors say, in the lion's mouth. What happened over the next 6 hours was the true miracle. It didn't come from the sky with a blast of light. It came quietly from below. Sister Clara came to the bridge. She was a small woman in her 70s, with eyes that held a profound calm. "Captain," she said, her voice barely a whisper but cutting through the tension. "The people are afraid. May we bring the icon to the main atrium? We will pray the Rosary. Now I am a man of the sea. My faith was in charts and steel and the skill of my crew. But in that moment, with despair closing in, I saw no harm in hope. Do what you must, sister," I said, my voice gravelly with stress. They brought the icon of Stella Maris, Our Lady Star of the Sea, into the grand atrium, which was now cold and lit by emergency lamps. Passengers and crew, Catholics, Protestants, people of all faiths and some of none gathered. They were wrapped in blankets, huddled together. And they began to pray. Not a quiet murmur but a strong, unified, rising chant. The Rosary in a dozen languages, weaving together into a single thread of sound that filled the dark, wounded ship. Hail Mary, full of grace. It flowed up the stairwells, down the corridors and onto the bridge. And as they prayed, the first sign. My chief engineer, a gruff, no-nonsense Scotsman named Hamish, called up, his voice cracking with something other than static. "Captain, you need to see this." In the engine room. I went down into the belly of the ship. The smell of salt water and fear was thick. Hamish stood there, his face smudged with oil, staring at a gauge. "The water ingress," he said. "It stopped. Not slowed, Captain. Stopped. It's not rising an inch." The breach, against all physics, had somehow plugged itself. With ice, perhaps? But the water around us was salt, well below freezing. It made no sense. I returned to the bridge, my mind reeling. Then David, my first officer, pointed a trembling finger at the main window. "Sir, look." The black, dead calm of the sea was beginning to shimmer. A soft, ethereal green light began to pulse beneath the surface. Not the sharp flash of our flares, but a gentle, living luminescence. Bioluminescence, but unlike any I'd ever seen. It grew in intensity, outlining the entire horrifying ice field around us. It was as if someone had turned on a vast, underwater lamp. We could see every berg, every growler, every path. The labyrinth was illuminated. But it did more than light our way. The light seemed to interact with the ice. As we watched, utterly dumbfounded, the current that had been pulling us deeper into the maze shifted. It was subtle, but on the radar plotter, now running on a single miraculously revived battery backup, we could see it. The flow was now gently, impossibly, pushing us back the way we came, nudging us away from the densest pack and toward a clearer channel we had passed hours before. We were being guided. On the bridge we were speechless. The prayers from the atrium grew louder, more fervent. A passenger, a young astrophysicist from Norway, came up, tears streaming down his face. "Captain," he said, "the aurora, look up." We looked. The Antarctic night sky, usually a blanket of stars, was erupting. The aurora australis, the southern lights, began to dance. But not in the usual ribbons of green. This was a cascade of violet and rose and gold, swirling directly above the ship in a breathtaking, silent symphony. Felt like a confirmation. For the next 5 hours we worked. With a path lit by the sea and the sky, and with a newfound superhuman calmness on the crew, we managed to jury-rig enough power to get the steering online. We couldn't propel ourselves, but we could steer. And the current, that blessed, impossible current, continued to gently carry us, as if on a hand, through the narrow, ice-choked passage and out into the open, safer waters of the Bransfield Strait. As the bow of the Resolute cleared the last of the bergs, the bioluminescence in the water slowly faded. The aurora above softened to a gentle glow. And at that precise moment, our main generators sputtered, coughed, and roared back to life. Lights blazed on across the ship. Heat returned. And our satellite link chirped to life with the frantic voices of the Rescue Coordination Center who had been tracking our last known position. We were saved. The official inquiry called it a series of highly improbable coincidences. A unique interaction of ice and current. A rare atmospheric and bioluminescent event. They wrote reports on metal fatigue and emergency protocols. But I was there. 2,847 people were there. We know what we saw. We know what we felt. It was not coincidence. It was intercession. That icon of Stella Maris now hangs in my study. Sister Clara told me before she disembarked, "Captain, she didn't still the storm. She helped you ride it." And sometimes the miracle isn't the absence of danger, but the presence of peace within it. My friends, why am I telling you this? Not for views. Not for fame. I am telling you this because in a world that feels so dark, so adrift, so perilous, we need to remember that we are not alone. We are seen. We are heard. The channel that guided a physical ship through ice can guide a heart through despair. If this story, this testament, touched something in you today, then I have a request. First, subscribe. Hit that button and ring the bell. By subscribing, you're not just following a channel, you're joining a community of believers, a crew on a journey of faith. We explore these deep mysteries together. Second, if this resonated with you, share it. Share it with someone who is in their own personal labyrinth right now, someone facing illness, grief, financial ruin, addiction, despair. Send them this video as a message. Hope is real. You are not adrift. Third, I want to hear from you. Go down into the comments. Don't just type hope and your city. Tell me about a miracle in your own life. Big or small. The cancer that went into remission. The job that appeared when all was lost. The mended relationship. The peace that came in grief. Let's fill this comment section with a flood of testimonies, a wave of grace that will lift every person who reads it. And finally, if you want to go deeper, to be part of a daily community of support and prayer, I invite you to join our WhatsApp and Telegram channels. The links are in the description below. We share prayers, reflections, and support each other. It's a powerful way to build a strong community under the mantle of Our Lady's blessing. The invite is there for you. You know, they repaired the MS Resolute. She sails again. But she is different. And so am I. I still command ships, but now I know I am not the ultimate captain. I have seen the hand that guides the stars, that paints the aurora, that calms the troubled sea of the human heart. That same hand is reaching for you. Wherever you are, in whatever storm you face, remember the Resolute. Remember that in the darkest night, a light can shine from the depths. Remember to pray. And never, ever lose hope. God bless you. And fair winds following seas.